In this video, we'll have a look at KAIA gear and the new KAIA'S Soul gear. I will also talk about the rest of the gear setup. Let's get right into it. Once you reach level 65, you unlock the quest called the Well-Meaning Barakas. The only thing you have to do in order to complete it is talk to an NPC. He will give you a full set of gear, including accessories. I will talk about the accessories later on in this video. For now, let's focus on the KAIA gear. You will get a full set of +0 KAIA gear from the NPC, and it does not have any optional stats, but it can be upgraded to KAIA'S Soul later on. Use it if you don't have any enchanted Darklight or Annihilation gear, or KAIA gear with optional stats. New and returning players might not know this, but there are two kinds of classes now: physical and magical classes. The physical classes are Lancer, Brawler, Warrior, Slayer, Valkyrie, Berserker and Archer, and the magic classes are Mystic, Priest, Sorcerer, Ninja, Gunner and Reaper. Gear also comes in two variants now, one with a fixed magic amplification stat and one with a fixed physical amplification stat. For magic classes, make sure all the pieces are Darklight or KAIA'S Wisdom, and Annihilation or KAIA'S Fury for physical classes. If you have the wrong type, then make sure to replace it before you keep enchanting or upgrading, because you don't want to invest materials into the wrong set. If you notice that you have the wrong set, then you can just use the KAIA gear you get from the quest or from a box. The KAIA gear boxes drop in dungeons now, and they are quite easy to get. If you plan on upgrading to KAIA'S Soul gear as quickly as possible, then there is no need to worry about optional stats for your KAIA gear, because the stats will be lost during the upgrade. Do not buy KAIA'S Sanity or KAIA'S Ferocity gear though, even if you see it for cheap at the broker. Those two sets were made from Eternal Darklight or Eternal Annihilation gear and cannot be upgraded to KAIA'S Soul. A few patches ago they were nice as a cheap but weaker alternative, but they should not be used in the current patch anymore. If you already have some enchanted Annihilation or Darklight gear of the correct type for your class, then depending on the enchant level, it might be better to upgrade that to KAIA than to start over with a new set. In order to upgrade, you will first have to complete the purple quest called KAIA'S Anvil, which you should receive once you reach level 70. It actually only requires you to travel to Haber, visit Murak's workshop and talk to some NPCs there. Once you're done with that, you can just talk to Fovarth inside the workshop and convert your gear. As materials, you will need 1 black core essence per piece, which can be bought from the same NPC, some Mana Force refined uranium ore, and 10k gold. Using Heroic Oath gear as material is not possible anymore, and the black core nodules and shards are not required. You can get the Mana Force refined uranium ore by dismantling KAIA gear, like the ones you got from the quest or from the boxes dropping in dungeons. Once you have a full set of KAIA gear, you'll have to enchant it to +15 so you can upgrade it to KAIA'S Soul. Enchanting Darklight, Annihilation or KAIA gear requires gold and improved feedstock now. The improved feedstock drop in dungeons for low gear levels, and you only need a few per enchant attempt. You can also farm improved feedstock by sending your companions on the corrupted Skynest adventure. KAIA'S Soul is the new gear set. The weapon and chest armor were added to the game in patch 102, and the gloves and boots were added with patch 103. Unlike KAIA gear, which can be enchanted up to +15, the new set can only be enchanted up to +9. Reaching levels +7, +8 and +9 will unlock some additional fixed stats, which will give a big boost to your character. Upgrading to KAIA'S Soul gear is really simple. You don't have to unlock anything, all you need to do is put the +15 KAIA gear into the enchant window and it will automatically switch to the upgrade tab where you can see what materials you need and do the upgrade once you have everything. For the weapon and the chest piece upgrades, you need 10 Lumicant's wing fragments, and for the gloves and boots, you need 10 Tyrant's bells. You also need 5k gold for each item, but luckily the upgrade cannot fail. In order to enchant your KAIA'S soul gear up to +6, you will need the same materials, but it will also require magic alloy. From enchant level +6 on, the magic alloy is replaced by magic ingots, and on top of the Lumicant's fragments and Tyrant's bells, you will need Lumicant's horn pieces for the weapon and chest piece, and Tyrant's souls for the gloves and boots. The wing fragments and Tyrant bells drop in medium difficulty dungeons such as Catalepticon normal mode, Killing Grounds, Drakon Arena and Corrupted Skynest normal mode. You can also get the fragments from Azad Force loot chests and the belts from Thulsan Forces loot chests, which can both drop in any of the level 66 to 69 dungeons. The horn pieces drop in Catalepticon hard mode, and the Tyrant's souls drop in Crimson Killing Grounds. The horn pieces can also be obtained from Azad Force War Trophy chests, and the souls can be obtained from Thulsan Force's War Trophy chests, which can both drop in the easy to medium difficulty dungeons. Commander's Residence does not drop any of the boxes, but it does drop the magic alloys and ingots. Magic alloys can also be obtained in level 70 dungeons up to item level 498, and the magic ingots can be obtained from dungeons for item level 501, though you can also buy both of these at the development merchants in major cities. There are two different sets of jewelry available, one with a fixed crit factor stat and one with power. Which ones you need depends on your crit cap, which is different for each class and dungeon. Dungeons for low gear levels typically require less crit factor than harder dungeons. To figure out the crit cap, you need to look at the guide for your class or use a DPS meter and experiment with different values until you get close to 100% crit rate on your most important skills. You can switch out items such as your jewelry, innerwear, green crystals, or relic and halidom in order to adjust for the different dungeons. Even though technically the crit cap might be different for each dungeon, it is enough if you have one low crit and one high crit build. Switching between different builds each time might seem like a lot of work, however you can save up to 5 builds in your player window. Below the relic and halidom, you see small numbered boxes which are slots for saving builds. And there's a floppy disk icon to save a build. You can switch between them by clicking on one of the 5 boxes, or by using a shortcut which is Shift+1 to Shift+5 by default. The story quest that I mentioned earlier in this video always gives you power rings, as well as crit factor earrings and necklace, independent of your class. This means that for some classes, the accessories you get are actually not the best choice. For example, healers are aiming at 500 crit factor, which you reach by using a full set of crit factor jewelry, and on Valkyrie and Brawler you should be using a full set of power jewelry. You can just use what the quest gave you until you can either run the dungeons that drop the jewelry, or until you have saved up enough gold so you can buy them at the broker. Even though I said innerwear can be used to fine-tune your crit factor, you might want to go with something else instead. Depending on your class, you might want to choose magical or physical, resistance, amplification or crit power. So make sure to verify this by looking at the class guide. The story quest will also give you a circlet and a dark light or annihilation mask, brooch and belt. For the belt you might want to stick with Heroic Oath if you have one of those. For most, if not all DPS and tank classes, the Heroic Oath belt is actually a better choice due to the power stats. Just like KAIA gear, jewelry, masks, brooches and belts can also have optional stats. The gear you get from the story quest won't have any optional stats though. but the gear pieces you get from dungeons can have up to 3. Unlike the KAIA gear, it is worth getting accessories with optional stats, especially since those can also be infused with even more stats later on. All the endgame gear sets you can get right now have some slots for infused stats. You can fill those slots with stats by opening your inventory and clicking on the infusion button at the bottom. As materials, you will need a piece of Blight Oath gear and some gold. The Blight Oath gear can be obtained from Blight Oath medallions, which drop in Ruinous Man on normal mode and Akalath Quarantine. Once you put your gear and a piece of Blight Oath into the infusion window, you'll see which stats are available on that piece of Blight Oath. Which ones of those stats are transferred onto your gear is chosen at random, so you will have to do this over and over until you get the stats that you want. Jewelry that was obtained from dungeons can also get infused. The materials you need for that are called resizing stones, and there are different ones for different kinds of jewelry. As I mentioned earlier, gear pieces can have optional stats which are different from the infused stats that I just talked about. These optional stats can also be changed by using option change scrolls. There are different option change scrolls for each gear piece, and they all come in 3 different variants. There are unstable option change scrolls, stable ones, and grid head option change scrolls. The unstable ones randomize all the optional stats, and even randomize the amount of options the gear piece has. The amount of options can be between 0 and 3, so only use the unstable scrolls if your gear doesn't have 3 optional stats yet. There are also option boost scrolls, which just increase the amount of options by 1, unless there were already 3 anyway. For KAIA'S Soul gear, getting 3 optional stats by using an unstable scroll is quite unlikely, so you might want to use an unstable scroll to get 2 optional stats, and then use a boost scroll to get the 3rd one. If you want to change all the options on a piece of gear, but it already has 3 optional stats unlocked, then use a stable option scroll. These will keep the amount of options the same, but they will randomize all the stat types and strengths. Just like the stable scrolls, the greed head option change scrolls keep the amount of stats the same, but they randomize the stat types and strengths. Unlike the stable scrolls, the greed head type allows you to lock some of the stats, so they won't be randomized. Locking a stat requires additional materials though. For etchings, make sure you have at least etching 4 on your weapon and gloves. Those will boost your DPS or healing, while etchings on your chest piece and boots will increase defense. Etchings drop quite a lot in dungeons now, so you should be able to get what you need without spending tons of gold. For most classes, energetic etchings are the best choice, but you should verify this for each class you're new to. For accessories, the etchings are a bit less important, in the sense that they are not mandatory, but they do add up and increase your DPS once you put some on. Don't put any expensive etchings on the accessories that you got from the story quest though, because those don't have any optional stats and you cannot use option change scrolls on them or infuse stats onto them. For DPS and tanks, power is typically a good choice on accessories, or crit factor if you haven't reached crit cap yet. For healers, something like energetic or swift could be useful as well. Well, that concludes this guide. Make sure to have a look at the corrections and additions section in the video description. I decided to add an empty section for this during the upload from now on, and add stuff in there if anything comes up. I think that's the easiest way to add information after publishing the video. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop those below, but you're also welcome to come hang out on Twitch. I stream TERA every Sunday at 9 PM UTC, which is 4 PM EST. On Wednesdays, I stream at the same time, However, those streams are not for TERA. I either play any of the other games I own, or I do something else. For example, last Wednesday I followed a tutorial to make a 3D CGI donut in Blender. Anyway, leave a like if this video was helpful and subscribe for more. Thank you all for watching and see you next time.